A Norfolk Southern Railway freight train derailed in Ohio on February 3, 2023. 38 out of 149 cars went off track, including 5 containing dangerous vinyl chloride. Norfolk Southern had to burn the material to prevent an explosion, drawing attention to the debate on rail industry regulations, federal involvement in chemical spills, and much more. We don't know about you, but in the flurry of political headlines and finger-pointing, kind of lost the story of what actually happened. Freight trains, like the one that derailed in East Palestine, are fascinating feats of engineering. In the National Transportation Safety Board, or NTSB, and others have released preliminary reports that contain some really interesting details. Look around you and chances are nearly every human-made object you see has either as bulk raw materials or even as finished goods spent time on the high wire. One of the reasons trains are so integral to our lives is because there's nothing else that comes even close to their efficiency in moving cargo over land at such a scale. Steel wheels on steel rails waste little energy to friction, especially compared to rubber tires on asphalt. Locomotives may look huge, but their engines are almost trivial compared to the enormous weight they move. If a car were so efficient, its engine could practically fit in your pocket. And yet the trains those locomotives pull are not so much just a vehicle as they are a moving location larger and heavier than most buildings. With this scale in mind, you can see why the crew in a locomotive can't monitor the condition of all the cars behind them without some help. A rear-view mirror doesn't do you much good when part of your vehicle is a half-hour's walk behind you. There was a time not too long ago when every freight train had a caboose. Part of their purpose was to have a crew at the end of the train who could help keep a lookout for problems with the equipment. Now, all modern railways have replaced that crew with wayside defect detectors. These are computerized systems that can monitor passing trains and transmit an automated message to the crew over the radio, letting them know the condition of their train in real time. CSX detector milepost 7 by 6.8. You have a defect. Defect detectors look for lots of issues that can lead to derailment or damage, including dragging equipment over height or over width cars, a hazard of the train will be passing through. Tunnels are under bridges and important in this case, overheating axles and bearings depending on the railway operator in line. Detectors placed every 10 to 20 miles recorded data from the freight train that derailed in East Palestine. The suspected wheel bearing responsible for the crash was on the 23rd car at milepost 79.9. Its temperature rose significantly. The train passed 2 more detectors, with the last one registering a temperature of 253 degrees above ambient, triggering an alarm to stop the train. However, it was too late. The train's brakes engaged after the defect detector notified the crew. Sparks were seen shortly before the derailment. The crew applied brakes and moved away, but 38 out of 151 cars derailed and caught fire, including 11 carrying hazardous materials like vinyl chloride. Concerns arose over rising temperatures in the vinyl chloride tanks, fearing an uncontrolled explosion. The tank cars have safety features, but the temperature continued to increase. They decided to perform a controlled release of the chemical to prevent an explosion while they were still making the decision. The Ohio National Guard and the Federal Emergency Management Agency were running atmospheric models to estimate the extent of the resulting plume. Local emergency managers use these models to evacuate the area most likely to be affected by the release. On February 6, crews dug a large trench in the ground, vented the 5 vinyl chloride tanks into the trench, and set the chemical on fire to burn it official. Despite being done on purpose to reduce the danger of the situation, the resulting fireball and pillar of smoke have become symbolic of the disaster itself. You might be wondering, like I did, why the controlled burn was necessary if the tank cars were fitted with pads. While the NTSB full report hasn't been released yet, they have released some details about their inspections of the vinyl chloride cars. 3 of the cars were manufactured in the 1990s with aluminum hatches that cover the bowels, as opposed to the more updated standard steel hatches during the initial fires and energetic pressure release. It seems that the aluminum may have melted and obstructed the relief valves, impacting their ability to reduce the building pressure. Vinyl chloride, found in VCRs and PVC, was being transported by a train through a populated area. Since vinyl chloride is toxic and flammable, officials decided to burn it off as a quick solution. Burning chemicals is a common method for handling hazardous substances that cannot be easily stored. While burning vinyl chloride has its drawbacks, it was intended to prevent harm to people and minimize pollution. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency conducted an aerial analysis of the resulting plume after the burn-off. Low detections of concerning chemicals were found, leading to the conclusion that the controlled burn of the railcars was deemed a success. However, the impacts of the event extend far beyond immediate fatalities. Chemical pollutants were released into the air and contaminated local waterways during firefighting efforts, reaching the Ohio River and causing the death of approximately 40,000 aquatic creatures. The long-term ecological consequences and the effects on residents remain uncertain, but state and federal EPA agencies are actively involved in monitoring and cleanup operations. Air quality and water samples have not shown any concerning levels of contamination, although groundwater contamination may take time to manifest. Norfolk Southern has been ordered by the EPA to conduct the cleanup, and progress has been made in removing contaminated soil and water. The incident has prompted policy discussions and investigations into rail safety practices. Despite the tragedy, rail transportation remains the safest method for moving hazardous materials, although regulatory oversight is crucial. The U.S. freight rail industry is dominated by a small number of powerful companies, which has implications for political influence.